I never told my son what was waiting for him at the Lakehouse. He didn't know it existed. Not really. Not as anything more than a memory of childhood summers and his mother's laughter carrying across the water. He thought it was just a place. He had no idea it was a vault. I was at my brother-in-law's place in Sudbury when my phone rang. A Saturday morning in October, frost on the grass, coffee going cold in my hand. I saw Daniel's name on the screen and answered on the second ring, the way you do when you're a father and something in your gut tells you not to wait. Dad. His voice was tight in a way I hadn't heard since the night his mother passed. She took the truck. She won't tell me where she went. The spare key is missing. The one from the kitchen drawer. The one for the lake house. I set my coffee down very carefully on the porch railing. How long ago? Maybe an hour. Dad, she had her sister on the phone last night. I heard her say there had to be something valuable up there. She said you'd been hiding things. She used that word. Hiding. I looked out at the birch trees going yellow along the fence line. The ordinary Saturday morning continuing without any awareness of what was happening 3 hours north of us. Don't call her again, I said. Don't call the lake house. Just stay home. Dad, what's up there? What is she going to find? Nothing she can touch, I said. I promise you that. His name is Daniel. He's 34, and he has his mother's eyes and his grandfather's stubbornness and, until recently, a remarkable inability to see people clearly when he loved them. That last part isn't a criticism. Margaret was the same way. It was part of what made her so generous and so easy to take advantage of, and so beloved by everyone who deserved her. Daniel met Vanessa at a work conference in Toronto 2 years ago. She was charming the way certain people are charming. Completely and immediately, like a light switched on and aimed directly at you. He called me that same week, and I remember thinking as I listened to him talk that he sounded the way he had at 17 when he bought a used car from a man he'd met at a gas station. Excited, certain, already in love with the idea. I kept that thought to myself. Margaret always said I was too quick to distrust people, and she wasn't wrong. I had promised myself after she died that I would try to be more open. I had promised her that, actually, sitting beside her hospital bed in the palliative ward, holding her hand while the machines did their quiet work. She said to me, "Don't close up on Daniel. Let him live his life. Trust that we raised him right." I said I would. I meant it. But I also went to see our lawyer the following week and asked him to update everything. Vanessa moved into Daniel's apartment 6 months after they met. I drove down for dinner on a Sunday in February, bitter cold, the kind of night that makes Ontario feel like the edge of the world. She was lovely, attentive. She asked about my career, about Timmins, about the lake house. She asked where it was, how big it was, whether I still used it. I told her it was my wife's family's place, that we'd kept it out of sentimentality. Small, I said, old. More trouble than it's worth, probably. She nodded sympathetically and changed the subject, but I noticed she'd asked 3 follow-up questions before she did. Over the following year, I noticed other things. The way she angled conversations toward finances. The way she'd mention casually something Daniel had told her about his mother's estate, and then watch my face as she said it. The way she came alive whenever the topic turned to property or investments, or what life might look like when I was no longer around to manage things myself. She never said anything overtly. She was too careful for that, but there was a pattern, and once you saw it, you couldn't unsee it. Daniel proposed at Christmas. She said yes before he'd finished the sentence. That evening, while Daniel was doing dishes, Vanessa sat across from me at the kitchen table and said very pleasantly, "We should talk soon about estate planning, as a family, so everyone's on the same page." I looked at her. She had her hands wrapped around her wine glass, and she was smiling the way you smile when you're delivering a reasonable suggestion. "Absolutely," I said. "I'll set something up." I called my lawyer the next morning. Margaret had been meticulous about things like this. She'd worked in estate administration for 15 years before Daniel was born, and she'd seen enough fractured families and disputed wills to know exactly how the story could go if you weren't careful. When she was diagnosed, she moved fast. Everything went into a family trust. The lake house, the investments, the accounts, structured so that the assets would pass to Daniel directly outside of any matrimonial property claim. She'd been specific about the matrimonial piece. I remember her saying it without any drama, the way she said most hard things. If he ends up with someone who's after what we built, I want to make sure she can't get to it. She wasn't thinking of anyone in particular. She just knew how the world worked. After Christmas dinner with Vanessa, I made one addition of my own. A condition on the distribution of certain assets requiring confirmation from our lawyer that no active claims or proceedings were underway. Standard protective language. Clean and defensible. I also spoke with Gerald, the man who'd been handling maintenance at the Lakehouse for 11 years. I told him there might be an unauthorized visit. I told him what to do if there was. Then I went home to Timmins and waited. By August, I could see Daniel pulling back. Our phone calls had started to include longer pauses. He'd stopped talking about the wedding date. He told me Vanessa had quit her job at the marketing firm, not been let go, quit voluntarily, on the assumption that with the wedding coming and my supposed resources in the picture, there was no particular urgency to continue. He also told me she'd looked up the Lakehouse on the municipal assessment site and found the estimated value. She'd brought it up at dinner like a fun fact. Did you know your dad's lake property is assessed at almost $400,000? That's wild. Daniel said he'd felt something shift when she said it. The way she said your dad's lake property, like it was already a number in a column somewhere. I asked if he'd talked to her about it. He said he was still thinking about what to say. Take your time, I said. The most important thing is that you're sure about what you're seeing before you say anything you can't take back. What I meant was, I've already handled the parts that needed handling. You just need to figure out your own heart. She got to the Lakehouse at 10 on a Saturday morning. Gerald watched from the maintenance shed and called me. She'd parked Daniel's truck in the drive, used the masking tape key with Margaret's handwriting on it, the word Woobun, written in blue marker, the name of the lake, and let herself in like she owned the place. Gerald said she spent 40 minutes inside. She went through the storage closet in the back bedroom, the one with the old files, the photo albums, the boxes of Margaret's things. On her second trip out to the truck, she was carrying what looked like a camera bag. She was photographing documents. I want to explain something about the Lakehouse because it matters. After Margaret died, we moved everything that needed moving. The property was transferred into the trust. The boxes in the back bedroom closet contained Margaret's photo albums, Christmas cards we'd kept since 1987, Daniel's school reports from elementary school, a plastic bin of his hockey medals, some of Margaret's gardening books, and one fireproof document box that held exactly 3 things: a copy of our marriage certificate, a copy of Daniel's birth certificate, and a letter Margaret had written to him by hand, meant to be read at a time I would know when it arrived. There were no financial records at the Lakehouse. There was nothing there that could tell you anything about accounts or assets, or the structure of the trust. Important documents lived with our lawyer in Timmins, in a fireproof safe, in a building with a security system. Vanessa spent 40 minutes photographing birthday cards and school reports, and her future mother-in-law's handwriting on the backs of old photographs. I hope she found it educational. I arrived at the Lakehouse at 1. Her truck was in the drive, and smoke was coming from the fireplace, which told me she'd made herself comfortable enough to light a fire. I sat in my car for a moment and looked at the smoke and thought about Margaret, who had loved that fireplace, who had spent entire November weekends reading beside it while the lake went gray outside the window. I went inside. She was sitting at the kitchen table with her phone and a glass of water. When she saw me come through the door, her face went through several expressions very quickly before settling on something that was trying to be casual and not quite making it. "Robert, I didn't know you were coming up." "I could say the same," I said. I took off my coat and hung it on the hook by the door. My wife had put that hook there. I sat down across from Vanessa at the table. "Where's the key?" I said. She reached into her pocket and put it on the table between us. I picked it up and put it in my own pocket. "I want to be straightforward with you," I said. "I think you deserve that." She was very still. The fire was going in the next room, and you could hear it. "I know what you've been looking for. I know you pulled the property assessment. I know you asked Daniel about his mother's estate on at least 4 separate occasions in the last year. I know you've been trying to build a picture of what exists and what it might be worth. And I know that what you found in the back bedroom today was not what you were hoping to find." She opened her mouth. I kept going. "The assets are in a family trust, have been for 4 years. Margaret set it up before she died, and I updated it earlier this year. The Lakehouse is in that trust. The investments are in that trust. When I'm gone, those assets transfer to Daniel directly outside of any matrimonial property claim, under the terms of the trust instrument. Your marriage to Daniel would not change that. A divorce would not change that. The trust was structured specifically to ensure that. Our lawyer drafted it. It has been reviewed. It is not something that can be worked around." A long silence. "I'm not angry," I said, and I meant it. "I'm not interested in a fight. I'm telling you how it is so you can make informed decisions. Whatever you were hoping to find here, it isn't here. Whatever picture you'd built in your mind, I'm asking you to set it aside and ask yourself honestly what you want your life with my son to look like." Outside, the lake was flat and silver. A pair of loons had come in to winter on the far shore. "Daniel is a good person," I said. "He's kind, and he works hard, and he would do anything for someone he loves. He deserves someone who sees that. Just that." Without the addition. I stood up and put her glass in the sink. "I'll wait outside while you get your things." She left 3 weeks later, a Tuesday while Daniel was at work. She took her things and her car and left a note on the counter that said she needed time to think. She didn't take anything that wasn't hers. She didn't make a scene. She read the situation and she walked away from it cleanly. And whatever her reasons for coming into my son's life, her reasons for leaving it were at least honest. Daniel called me that night. He was quiet for a long time. "Did you know this was going to happen?" "I didn't know," I said. "I thought it might." "Why didn't you tell me what you saw?" This was the question I'd been turning over for months. And I had the answer ready, though I'd never quite said it aloud before. "Because I could have been wrong," I said. "And because it needed to be something you came to yourself. I could protect what needed protecting. I couldn't make you see something before you were ready. That part had to be yours." He was quiet again. Then he said, "She asked me last week if we could redo the prenup. She said the lawyer who drafted it hadn't been fair." "What did you think?" "That I was tired," he said. "I'd been tired for a long time." "Come up to the lake," I said, "next weekend. I want to show you something." We went up on a Friday in November. The water was still blue and cold, and the birches along the south shore had gone bare. We built a fire in the fireplace, and I made the lamb stew Margaret used to make in the fall, and we ate at the kitchen table where I had sat across from Vanessa 6 weeks earlier, and the house felt like itself again. After dinner, I went to the back bedroom closet and took out the fireproof document box and brought it to the table and put it in front of Daniel. He looked at it, then at me. "Your mother left that for you," I said. "She told me I'd know when the time was right. I think this is it." He opened the box. He took out the marriage certificate, the birth certificate, and then the envelope with his name on it in Margaret's handwriting, her careful looping cursive that he'd known all his life. He held it for a long moment without opening it. I went to stand by the window and look out at the lake so he could have the room. I heard the envelope open. I heard him breathing. When I turned around, his eyes were wet, and he was holding the letter carefully with both hands. "She knew," he said. "She knew a lot of things," I said. He folded the letter and put it back in the envelope and held it against his chest for a moment. "The way you hold something you're not ready to set down." The fire went on in the next room. The loons called from somewhere out on the dark water. I made another pot of coffee, and we talked until almost midnight, the way we used to talk when he was young, without any agenda. Just the two of us in the place where we'd always known how to find each other. There are things you build in a life that have nothing to do with money. Account balances and property assessments and trust instruments are just tools, useful ones, and I'm grateful we had them. But the thing Vanessa came looking for, the thing she spent 40 minutes photographing in the back bedroom, hoping to find the key to something worth taking, she could never have found it, because it doesn't have a lock. It's just a boy who grew up knowing he was loved. It's just a father who kept his promise. It's just a letter in an envelope in a fireproof box, waiting in a closet for exactly the right November night. Margaret knew that was the only legacy that would last. She was right about everything. She usually was.